today we're going to be taking a look after this super busy weekend at some of the new card reveals, and I was going to do this in a two-part thing, but I decided to keep it all for one sitting because there's only 12 cards to go over overall. So let's get to it in a minute here. Just wanted to shout out Big Cuckoo Rosina for making it to the finals of the Gwent Masters. Teammate of mine, phenomenal player, and it's too bad we couldn't bring it home, but he did his damn best and it was awesome to watch. So let's get into it here. We've got monsters to start up with, and before you let me know, hey Q, the resolution's not very good in these pictures, I know. It's the best pictures I can find on Reddit and whatnot at this point, so bear with me here. Now we have Arrakis Queen, which is an insectoid. Deploy, consume an allied unit. If it's an insectoid, spawn and play Arrakis Nest. So we want to be looking for insectoids. We have the ability now to play an Arrakis Nest. So that's awesome. It's already playing, it's already consuming a card, and we're already getting to play a second card off of it. And it already has a base power of 6. I'm really liking this card already, and I think it's super strong. Now we have the ability to go in with the Death Wish of this card, spawn and play a base copy of the consumed unit in this row. So basically we take this card and we consume another card. If it's an insectoid, we play another card, and if we consume this card, we play a copy of the initial card. By the sound of it. Now, if you guys have a different understanding about that, let me know, and I'd be curious to see how this card plays come Tuesday morning, but it's certainly going to be one of the first things that I'm trying. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be super strong, and you're going to see Arrakis Swarm come back with the big wide swarm. You're going to see Kikamor come back. Anything where you can put an insectoid, it's going to make it happen, but I don't think that this is going to be part of Vi. It might be. In some cases, someone's going to do it, but I think it's more geared towards the swarm, hence the nest and whatnot. So I'm really excited about that. Moving on to the second one, we have Regis Reborn. Now, it went completely over my head, but this image is actually part of the journey pass, and it went, like I said, there was a hint right in front of us for the last month, and I didn't even see it. Now, deploy, drain an enemy unit by 3. At the end of your turn while in hand or deck, if there's an enemy unit with bleeding, increase its own base power by 1. So you're not really going to be playing this early on for deploy and using it as an active engine. I think you're going to be playing this at the end of the game as a finisher, and the reason why is because we have the ability, while it's in hand or deck, to increase its base power by 1 for every turn that there's bleeding on the opposite side. So that's really good. And I don't know if it's going to stack, but it sounds like it's going to stack, because if there's a unit with bleeding, increase own base power by 1. So it just sounds to me like every turn it's going to have this thing. It's going to be like the Sunset Wanderers that sits in the bottom of your deck instead of in your hand. Now, again, if you guys have a different view of that, let me know, because I could just be dumb, right? But that's what it sounds like to me. Then you get to play it at the end of the game and drain an enemy unit by 3, and drain means that we take 3 away from them and put them onto our cards. So it's going to act as a big point slam, and it sounds really promising to me. This is actually the one of the ones, based on my understanding, that I'm most excited for. So let's definitely check out how that one rolls out on Tuesday. Now, moving on to Nilfgaard, we have Ard Ep Dehi. Oh god, I butchered that one. But it's a human aristocrat. Deploy unranged. If neither player's passed and your opponent's hand's not full, move a non-doomed enemy unit with a power up to the number of tactics in your starting deck to your opponent's hand. Then draw a card. That's a mouthful. So it acts as a meta in the way that we're able to draw a card, and we're giving them a card as well, but it's in the form of a card in their hand. I guess it's the same thing, really. Yeah, but it's a card of choice, what I meant to say, rather than the lowest provision card. So let's say, hypothetically, we were playing against Precision Strike. You have the ability to go in there and maybe put the Maddock in their hand and disrupt their play. Or maybe we want to put something back in their hand that we intend on making copies of. it's hard to say. This could maybe be one of those things where it just changes the game drastically. It could be one of these things that is just average, and I'd have to see it in action to really kind of have more of an opinion based on it. But I'm always curious to see what you guys think here. The Aristocrat's kind of cool because it now can be fit into Masquerade as another option to proc Masquerade Ball, although it is very expensive, sitting at 12 provisions. So I don't know if we have a lot of provisions there, especially with some of the recent nerfs, to fit it in a ball deck, or to fit some of the other things that we would normally put in a ball deck with this in a ball deck. So again, one of those things that I'd like to see it more to believe it. Now, Jan Calviet, we got Human Aristocrat, another Aristocrat, which is great. Deploy sword cards in your deck from the highest to the lowest provision cost. At the start of the game, move self up by 1 position in the deck for each tactic in your starting deck. So this is actually really cool, given the fact that we have the Aristocrat tag, you know, another good option to put in with that archetype, some support for that there. But then I also see this supporting the Enslave archetype as well. Now, maybe Enslave 5 if we're putting Masquerade Ball, but again, it could work, and we've seen Enslave 5 at an extremely competitive level, I believe, when Pieball brought that in the World Masters just about a year ago. So again, one of those things where this card helps with consistency by putting your deck in order. So a lot of people were concerned about playing Ball because if you don't draw Ball, it's so many provisions lost, being 15. Well, if we get this moved up, we can even play it differently and have this played earlier before Masquerade Ball to ensure that we're pulling it kind of like a maxi that actually just sorts your deck. And if we have a lot of tactics, maybe 10 for Enslave 5 or 12 for Enslave 6, this is going to be pulled in our first hand of the game. So I like this card a lot, and I definitely want to come out with some new meta breaker that's going to feature this card, and definitely excited about it. Moving on to Northern Realms, we have King Hensel. So on deploy, play a crew unit from your deck. Whenever an adjacent unit's cooldown decreases, boost self by the same amount. Now, I just really like its deployability. Play a crew unit from your deck. That's really big because it doesn't necessarily have to be a bronze card. It can be a gold card in this case. So now we can actually maybe see other cards like the War Elephant and things like that being played again. This looks like it would do really well with Shield Wall because there's a lot of soldiers normally within that deck and that sort of play. This could do well in Pincer Maneuver because you have the leader that's going to be making those tokens. This could be doing well with, I mean, just about anything, but Mobilization might see some value from this as well because we have, again, the ability to get crew from having the extra soldier made off our leader. So it's one of those things where I'd like to see it. Whenever an adjacent unit's cooldown decreases, boost self by the same amount. That passive effect is going to be a little bit difficult to get, but with things like the Defender Donimir of Troy being so good in this case, it's really easy to tuck this behind there and hide it behind there, or keep it alive with something else should anybody damage it. It does have a really strong ceiling, a pretty high ceiling here. It could get very tall, so it might be susceptible to tall ban. So I'd be curious to see if people are playing this just for its consistency, or if they're playing it as a really greedy engine as well. So there's got to be a fine line for this, I'm sure. But again, it does solve some of the problems that I've seen with Northern Realms. Missing gold cards, that could be detrimental, so we have a solution here that sticks under Devotion, which is massive because there's a lot of good Devotion payoffs within Northern Realms. And moving on to King Radovid, we have another soldier, which is great to see. Deploy if the base version of your leader's ability has more than one charge. Give it an additional charge. I think that this is going to be most prominent in Inspired Zeal, but specifically in Shield Wall, because with Shield Wall getting a provision increase with the next patch, it's going to be quite strong. And if you think about all the duels it had in the Master Mirror meta, this card's not very expensive to add to the deck, so we could still pull off some crazy stuff with this. And getting the extra shields helps quite a bit with a lot of control going around right now. Cards like Corvo could stick easier if there's no defender. We have big finishes where you're ripping off shields with Ragnar and some of the mages that do that sort of thing as well, that are getting more value from us being able to add more shields. And I could even see someone just going crazy with Witcher shields and Ragnar and this and all types of stuff. But I think the most serious way it's going to be played would be just within shield wall and having, again, those extra duels and that extra reach, which is just nuts. So I'm excited for that. But realistically, it could play with any leader that they have that has charges. So really great stuff. Moving on to Skellige. King Bran was the first one that was released. It's certainly one of my favorite ones here. It has a veteran tag, so every turn, whether it be in hand, deck, graveyard, it's going to be boosting its base power by 1 and changing it so that in round 3 it would be 7 power in this case. On deploy, boost self by 0. Increase the value by 1 whenever excess damage is dealt to enemy units. So it says whenever excess damage is dealt, not the total amount of extra damage dealt. So basically, if you have a 1 power token on the board and you hit it for 10, you're not going to automatically be getting the 9 to add on to this, plus whatever else you get throughout the game. It's just going to be every instance that you deal in extra damage, which is really cool and keeps it sort of in check. But then the secondary effect is my favorite part of it. If the veteran and that wasn't enough, we have at the start of the game, trigger the veteran ability of all your units. Nuts. So the problem with Skellige Warriors, and one of the reasons why it hasn't been as crazy in the meta over the last couple months, is because the tempo that other factions acquired, just, it couldn't keep up with it, right? It had a very hard time getting cards out there, and with the cards having veteran, they were getting stronger throughout the game, and they weren't at their peak until round 3. So Herald, Iced, Skjortel, Turgvi, the on-crate raiders, I can keep going, invaders, right? All these cards relied on you somehow getting through round 1, dry passing round 2, and going to round 3. I think that this is going to be great for the game. It's going to be good for how you can play Skellige Warriors, and I'm actually a little bit worried about it, because although I like Skellige, I like playing with Skellige. I don't like playing against it. You know what I mean? I want to be in control here. So again, a lot of people are going to be rocking this, and look out for King Bran and Warriors. It's going to be pretty nuts. Moving on to the next one here, we got Cirrus Fearless. Kinda rhymes. Kinda sorta. After you've dealt damage to allied units 9 times, summon self from your deck to the ranged row. It has Zeal, fully heal an allied unit, and damage another allied unit by the amount healed, with a cooldown of 1. I think that this one's going to be most played within Berserk, because you have cards that are self-damaging and you're being rewarded for it, and this is a way to get those points back that you would have lost otherwise. Awesome. And the fact that it thins from deck is really nice. We've seen in past with cards with these big cooldowns, or these big counters, I guess I could say, right? 9 counter, 10 counter, whatever the case. If you build a deck around it, it shouldn't be a problem to get this out late round 2, early round 3. So again, it's one of those things that you don't have to worry too much about getting out. The contingency in this case doesn't seem too difficult throughout the game here. You know, you've dealt damage to ally units 9 times. You have Vild Karl, you have Blue Boy Lugos, you put down a Svolblood Priest or whatever, and you're doing just fine. So there we have it. I'm excited to see this one in play. If you guys are looking for some inspiration on how to play this deck, I do have a recent upload that it's called Totally Berserk on the thumbnail there. You can go and check that one out. Maybe this card could be subbed in for something, because that deck was a lot of fun. It's one of my more trending videos right now, so check it out. And we'll definitely revisit that sometime within the next week or so. Milva Sharpshooter, Human, Skoi, one of my favorite factions here, top 2 I think. Zeal, damage an enemy unit by 2, death blow, shuffle self back into your deck. When you move an enemy unit, summon self from your deck to the opposite row and damage it by 1. So you want to play this card initially, and you want to get a death blow on it. And then, whenever you move an enemy unit, it's going to summon it from your deck to the opposite row and damage it by 2, or by 1. So, it doesn't say from your graveyard. So I'd be curious to see how this rolls out. Obviously, movement in its prime is one of the newer mechanics with Gwent. So we're looking to do some offensive movement here instead of just moving our stuff, right? So actually using those charges to push their things around, which is kind of exciting because most of the decks have been just moving our units around. Summon self from deck to opposite row and damage it. So again, if we don't have a way to... Well, we can't even just dismiss it and put it in our grave and bring it back because it just says from deck. So I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this one, and I'm really curious to try it for myself so I can understand the mechanics better. I don't know if this one's going to deliver as much as some of the other ones that I saw, but I'm curious to see it because I have some ideas in mind. I really like offensive guerrilla tactics, and I've been playing stuff like that for a while. So again, something we'll definitely visit in the next little while. This one here was announced on Sunday, and this one was one of the ones I'm most excited about. Let's see if we can get it a bit bigger for you guys here. So, Saskia Commander Dragon, it has immunity, and that's one of the reasons why I like it so much. I think there should be a few more cards in the game that have immunity because I like to play unit lists. You guys know my decks are, a lot of them are just like super low unit, lots of specials. It's like the most fun for me. So, deploy. If you have at least 10 different primary categories in your starting deck, summon a random bronze Skoi unit with a primary category that is not on your side of the battlefield from your deck to this row. At the end of your turn, lower the counter by 1. When the counter reaches 0, reset it, repeat the deploy ability, counter 3. So immunity means they can't hit it directly, which is great. So it'll actually be able to have its countdown, which is kind of nice. Or the counter 3, so basically we have, yeah, we're going to be able to recycle this one throughout the game. The thing is, it says summon. Where is it here? Yeah, summon. I don't know if summon procs harmony, but I do know that it plays into harmony quite well because you have at least 10 different primary categories in your starting deck. And what I like is that we're pulling cards out of our deck on a counter, so we're able to get a lot of cards out in not too many time and really help with our deck consistency. Having it maybe geared towards more of a devotion list will help us be able to cram more primary categories. So I'm excited to see how it plays. I think it's going to be very cool and add a bit of variety to the game, and if this ends up playing well into Harmony, I'll be pretty happy because Harmony is one of the decks that I used the first time I got to Pro Rank. It was all in that same season, so I was really excited about that. Now, moving on to the last section here, we have Syndicate Cirrus, Anglekind, Hamelfart. Used him for thumbnails. I've never used him on the actual playing board, so I'm excited about this. We've got Profit 4, so already we're getting a little bit of coin here, which is great. Deploys Spawn and Play Congregation, so that's really cool. It's playing like that location for Northern Realms, being able to just get a couple double effects out of it. It kind of plays like the Arrakis as well, right? In the way that we have an initial payoff, it spawns and plays another card, and then we have, again, the effective spender. So Fee 2, here, we'll close that for a sec. Fee 2, we destroy an allied Fireswarm token, then summon a bronze Fireswarm unit from your graveyard to the same position. Cooldown 1. So we're doing this on a regular basis to get rid of tokens and trading up to something a bit better. So it allows us to play Fallen Knights in multiple rounds, to play Clerics into multiple rounds, and to really play whatever we feel like having or need in that instance in multiple rounds. So you feel a little bit less greedy using key pieces to a combo early on. I think more times than not, you're going to be going the Ulrich into the Fallen Knight round 1, and you're going to be coming back with something like this in round 2 or 3, just because you need that tempo in round 1 to win the round, and you want to bring it back here to win another round. So really cool stuff. This is going to be, I think, one of my favorites, and I'm really hoping that Swarm meta takes off and Control meta sort of sits down a little bit, because it's nice to have the variety within the game. And moving on to the last one here, King of Beggars. Let's make that bigger here. So it has fee 1 boosts out by 1, so it is an effective spender. We have something if we don't have any other spenders on the board. While in deck, whenever you play a tribute, remove a counter for each coin paid. That's not bad. While in deck, remove a counter for each coin paid. So for each counter, gain 1 coin back. So we're spending money off the tributes, but we're actually making money back. So with tribute decks, this is going to basically reduce the amount of cards that we need solely for gaining coin. So I think that that's going to be a significant buff to the archetype. I played tributes recently when I was just looking for something to play over the last week. The deck's called the Perfect Tribute. If you guys haven't seen that one, go check it out. Now, this card would be a great addition to that. So if you're looking for inspiration, check that one out. Maybe look for a way to incorporate this in there. And some of the cards in that deck are actually getting a buff this week. So again, what a perfect time to actually try out Tribute if you haven't played it. This card summons itself from the deck to a random allied row, and we get to use it as a spender. So really good stuff. It has the blind eye tag, so if we decide, you know, we want to play Collusion or something like that, we have the ability to get the added effect of if we control the blind eye. So I think that's really cool. And I'm going to be getting into the 2022 journey and taking a look at that. They did talk about that quite a bit, so there's a roadmap for it out. We can be looking at that, having a conversation about that, and I'm going to see if I can get that up today. There's a lot of things that I have to do before this season's over. I have to close off the meme contest. We got to close it off because I actually have to get games in with your decks. I actually have to go over that, because if the cards that you guys put in the decks don't work tomorrow, then we're in trouble. So there's like 30 entries. I have my work cut out for me here. I didn't think we was going to get so many submissions. So after this here, I'm going to be doing that. I have one more video that I haven't posted that I've just been sitting on that I might actually go and I might actually finish up and upload for you guys. And then there's, you know, the roadmap that I'm going to try and get up soon. And then before we know it too, there's probably going to be patch notes this afternoon. So again, it's 6 a.m. right now. And I'm going to be really trying to hammer this out for you guys for the rest of the day. Now, hopefully it doesn't bother you if I'm uploading so much, but we're going to get back to the regular once-a-day schedule before you know it. So until then, we'll see you guys soon. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the season.